Okay, we're going to show you how to bond to an existing concrete wall. We're using the snap ties which are already in place. In this case here, I've used 3/8 ready rod or bolt rod. Go through the wall section, washer, big relief piece of plywood there too. This is actually clamped to the wall. There's a raceway or keyway in this wall right here on the inside. We pour our section in here. We have to put the whaler bars through these X-series snap ties. The wall will expand and that's where it will stop. A critical aspect of pouring a vertical concrete wall is the plate on the bottom. The snap ties stop the wall from expanding too much. The bottom plate prevents blowout on the bottom. It's a critical part to have in place. I've also surrounded the bottom footing board, which is a 2x8, with rock. Then we nail off every 6 inches into this bottom plate, and it'll prevent blowout on the bottom. So that's something else that's quite interesting. Over here, we're using conical snap ties. These are more designed for a commercial series pour. In this particular case, I had some. I want to use them up. These work a little differently, whereas these use a steel whaler bar going through. Over here, we drill through. In this case, I'll be using a 2x4 on edge, setting your 2x4 over top of this here, and then we'll slide this in from behind and tighten it up so the wall won't blow apart. Same rule applies. We use a nailer plate on the bottom, inside, and out. I'm going to show you how to put in place conical ties. These are for concrete, of course. They have a tapered end, like so. These ends sit on the plywood like this, which is exactly what I have in the wall right here. You're looking at the end of this portion here inside the wall, so these have to be pre-fitted inside the plywood. Obviously, as you're putting it together, you do that. I mentioned the other wall section. This wall section is also bolted onto a cinder block wall, which I realize you probably can't see too easily. It's sandwiched like this, compressed onto the wall. Coming away from the wall, we have these in place between the sections here. Now, I'm going to show you how to tighten these things into a wall section. These are in here, inside this area, right in here. If you're not using a type of reinforcement on the plywood, you use these, which are full-length reinforcement pieces. Usually you do some form of reinforcement. This is designed for low wall applications and for other areas on plywood where you don't require the reinforcement. These go like this. Now these will tighten completely down, and it will tighten it right in here, so it's very, very tight. If you do a wall like this, with a sheet of plywood like this, what you're going to get with this system is buckling between each one. You need a different type of reinforcement, because this is only giving this reinforcement to the plywood area. It's going to push like crazy. You can do it. I don't recommend it, because your wall is going to have a bit of a wave in it as it goes down. So here's what else you do. If you're using these conical ties, which we're talking about, you don't need these. You do need these. These are kind of the same thing. They're tapered wedges designed for conical ties. I've already pre-drilled this 2x4. 2x4s are one way to do it. They have steel reinforcement, which you can use as well, but these are designed for 2x4s. So what you do is you place the 2x4 on top, depending on your length and so on, do a line underneath, flip it and drill it just larger than the head. Just larger than that. And then this will slip over top, like that. To tighten them down, you do need these. It slips over top. You slide it across. And you tap them in right to that point there. I'm not quite ready to put this one in place yet, but that's how you do it. Now you've got these all through the whole wall section, so you put your 2x4 on. Everywhere there's one of these heads. These are 12-inch spacing this way, 12 inches apart. Now that is going to create a nice straight wall. Other people will frame the wall up vertically as well. You can, it depends on the wall section. In this case, I'm replacing the corner of the basement here. I don't really need that type of reinforcement, so we're going to stick with a flat 2x4 with the reinforcement with using the conical ties. What makes this one a little bit different is I'm using a mixture of ties. I shouldn't, but I am. You can do it if you're careful. I'm using the X series flat snap ties, which are the flat bars, which you can see in that wall section there. And I'm using these conical ties. So what I've got here is I've got slice marks in the plywood, which will allow me to fit my flat snap tie bars. It's the same as I've shown you before. They go across. This other side here is going to adjoin to the other plywood. This piece is going to slip in behind here like this. We need the whaler bars that go into here to complete this section. We can do this. A couple precautions. I don't think any of you are going to mix ties, but if you do, here's how you do it. If you choose to mix ties, we've got the conical tie here, which has already been tapped on like this. You have to allow room above or below any type of reinforcement you have with this to slide the whaler bars in place. If you don't do that, if you do it all on the same line, obviously you can't do it because these are not only sticking out, but you can't slide the bar in there. In addition, I've put these plywood reinforcement pieces here, so allowing room for the 2x4 to go across. So you can take the other piece of plywood that goes on here and put it right behind, screw it in, and now what will happen is the plywood won't pull apart, and while the concrete's being poured in place, you won't have too much leakage. It seals it off really well. So, next step. Awkward little spot, but I'm putting in snap ties. I wanted you to see how they go in place. There's nothing to them. We did our saw cuts, which you can barely see here, but these are saw cuts at this point. So, all there is for putting this style snap tie in place is feed them through the cut mark. You've got stops right here. Ultimately, when you fill this full of concrete, what will happen is the walls will expand out to where these oval holes are, because you have a metal bar going through it, which is not in place yet. It doesn't matter which way they go. As I might have mentioned before, this is a combination tie system. It's extremely unusual to do it like this, but I'm an unusual person to begin with. The truth of the matter being, I thought a full box of these conical snap ties. When I started using the box, I don't know, I had about 25 of these, and the rest were all 6-inch. So I went back to the X-style flat bar snap ties. So you get them all in place. Most plywood is not badly bent or curved like this piece is. Unfortunately, this one is the way it is. I'll correct it, but I want you to see that all we're doing at this point in time, got them suspended like this. This is cut the same way. These will feed through the slice marks. You should start either bottom or top. If you have a 4-foot long sheet, you should start at one end and pivot it like this, depending how you're building your wall. This will take me a few minutes to do all this. Being curved doesn't help. So you lift up the tie, I know you can't see. Then you poke it through. And if it doesn't go, you help it.